Perfect. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic-Con at Home. This is a new experience for, I think, all of us, and I'm so excited to have you all here with us. This is our Avatar panel, and we have panelists who have written in the world of Avatar, Avatar and Korra, that is. And I would love to introduce our guests today. So let's go ahead and start with Michael DiMartino. And we're going to talk about what he has done for the Avatar world and why he's here today.
I guess I'm here because I helped create this. Yes, I'm one of the co-creators of the show, original series and Legend of Korra. And then I've consulted on all the comics with Gene, with Faith. And I was also consulting on the Avatar Kyoshi novels with FC and wrote a couple arcs for the Korra comics as well. So I will never be free of this universe.
Faith, how about you?
Hi, I'm Faith Erin Hicks, and I am the current writer on the Avatar: The Last Airbender comics. I took over from Gene's run.
Perfect. And Gene?
Hi, I'm Gene. I did the first 5 arcs of the Avatar: The Last Airbender comics in consultation with Mike and Brian, and with art by this amazing art team named Gurihiru. They're a Japanese art studio out of Japan.
Perfect. And then FC.
Hi, I'm FCE. I wrote the young adult prequel novel, The Rise of Kyoshi, and also the out now sequel, The Shadow of Kyoshi, all with Mike's help.
Perfect. All right. So I am once again so thrilled to have you all with us today. I know things have been a little different this year as far as Comic-Con goes, but this is a fan favorite panel whenever we get to have it at the show, and I'm glad we get to have you all here again. So first, I'm going to kind of ask you just a very basic question about Avatar, and that is, what are some of your favorite Avatar stories that have been added to the world?
Like new ones?
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool to work with FC on the novels because that was like something very new for the universe. I wasn't sure like Avatar could work in a novel format when the publisher pitched it, but you know, when after talking with FC and seeing the drafts that he wrote, like it's kind of cool because it's like it's definitely not the show, it's definitely not the comics, it's kind of its own thing, and it's a little more mature, I guess, in some spots, and can go a little bit darker on some tonal things, but that's been cool to see that kind of avenue of storytelling develop in the Avatar universe.
Yeah. FC, how did that come to be? How did you sort of end up either deciding to write an Avatar novel or being the one to write the Avatar novel?
So it was actually kind of a surprise to me because my publisher, Abrams, I found out had submitted a proposal to Nickelodeon and to Mike about 2 books set in the Avatar universe, and they kind of said, "Hey, we have an author who wrote, an Asian-inspired action-adventure comedy, so we think he might be able to do it." And then they only told me that this had happened until after everyone had said yes. So I jumped at the opportunity, and basically wasn't going to turn down a gift like that, and just ran with it. I got lucky, got real lucky.
That's awesome. And then Gene, so you were one of the first to start the Avatar comics run. How did that come to be?
It was kind of crazy. I definitely wasn't the first because there was a whole series of Avatar comics that used to be in the Nickelodeon magazines, I think.
Nickelodeon magazine. Yes, that was the thing.
Yeah, it was collected in Lost Adventures. So I think we had a copy of that floating around in my house when I got the call. I got the call from Samantha Robertson, who was at Dark Horse at the time, and she asked me if I'd be willing to write these, and I kind of freaked out. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was kind of like everybody else, right? I was a huge Avatar fan. I watched all 3 seasons. At the end of the whole show, I was like, what happened to Zuko's mom? And then I asked asked that on the very first call that I had with Mike and Brian. It might have been like the first or second question I asked them. So to go from being a fan of the show to being invited into the universe to tell some stories, it was and to answer that question was amazing. It was amazing. It was one of the funnest experiences I've had as a comics guy.
Faith, how did you come to be in the Avatar world?
I mean, I feel like my background was pretty similar to Gene's. I was a really, really big fan of the show, and actually a really big fan of the comics that Gene was writing. Like, Gene and I are friends, and were published by the same publisher for second book. So sometimes we'd end up at the same conventions, and every time I'd see him, I'd just be like, Gene, can we talk about Avatar? Like, and I'd discuss like the latest comics that he had written and stuff like that. So I was a really big fan of both Gene and Guri Huru, and then also, yeah, of course, Avatar. Like, I don't know, I remember I started watching the show when it was airing. The second season had just aired, and season 3, I think, was about to start. So I watched season 3 in real time. And I remember when the finale finally came, it was such a long wait for the season 3 finale. And just experiencing that in real time was just such an incredible, incredible. And then Gene was going to move on and pursue other projects, and Dark Horse approached me about possibly writing Avatar. And at the time I was working on a fantasy series myself that was also very inspired by Avatar, an original series called The Nameless City. And the idea of getting to play in the Avatar sandbox, to work hand in hand with Brian and Mike, like, it was so exciting and terrifying, to be honest. Like, I've never been more scared to start to work on a project. But yeah, I got the job, and I started working on Imbalance. And I feel like Imbalance, just writing it was partially inspired by the first season of Korra and the rise of Bender's supremacy. So yeah, just getting the opportunity to tell stories in that universe was so amazing. I guess the short answer is Dark Horse emailed me and was like, Gene is moving on, out for this job. And I was like, those are huge shoes to fill, but if you will have me, I would love the opportunity. And yeah, now I'm Imbalance, the first trilogy that I wrote. Oh, and the artist that I collaborate with is Peter Wortman, an amazing artist. So Imbalance is done, the library edition is out, and now there's an original standalone graphic novel series, or standalone graphic novel, coming out in October called Katara and the Pirate Silver, also drawn by Peter and written by me.
Perfect.
Well, I have to point out, though, that Faith drew Avatar before that.
Yeah. We did a short comic together, a free comic book day story that is now collected in the Team Avatar Tales.
Friendship is built on our mutual love of Avatar.
I feel like there's I was answering this question in a blog interview or something, but I feel like Avatar kind of just like both like shaped and broke the mold for like an entire like layer of like generation of creatives, however you want to phrase that, because it's just like it's just where it inspired so much of us. It's just where our heads go when we think about what we really love and what we would like to be like, and what depths we would like to accomplish as creative professionals. So yeah,
it's the platonic, like I write and draw original comics for kids. Like that's my entire career pretty much. And it's like, I feel like Avatar is just this platonic ideal of what is an amazing fantasy story for kids. It has everything, and it's absolutely influenced and inspired my work, like right from the beginning.
Yeah, I joke that that's why anytime anyone of a certain age sees a compelling villain, you really think, how are they going to be redeemed? Like, what kind of awesome redemption arc was going to happen? Because that's my ideal of storytelling. So.
Yeah, and I actually don't think that like Faith and I are unique in that our friendship is at least partially built on Avatar, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, we've gotten books of people getting married, dressed as
Nice.
Korra and Asami, and or Aang and Katara, or and it's like so cool that people would actually like incorporate Avatar into like this very sacred day in their lives and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely creates communities, and which is very, very cool.
I think one of the biggest times I've seen that Avatar community is Dark Horse has done a couple live streams with Janet Varney and a couple of the other voice actors for Korra. And it's been such a highlight every time we've done it of my quarantine, just to see like the live stream chat like blow up with people like bonding, like meeting each other later online and just talking about this thing they love and watching just like all of the little like hearts every time they come on screen. It's truly, truly amazing every time we do those.
Yeah, I was feeling very nostalgic on the last one when it was all the actors together. Just remind me of the days of records and PJ cracking everyone up with his improv and Mindy's wackiness. Their dynamic was so great. So it was fun to see that again.
What do you think it is about Avatar that keeps bringing people back over the years? Both kind of fans, but also kind of creators who keep returning to it.
Man, I don't know. I feel like one of you might be better at answering this because, Brian and I just were, animation dudes back in early 2000s who wanted to make a TV show that, was cool and that we liked and that, hopefully would stand the test of time, which it somehow has. So, in some ways I feel like we got lucky too in the fact that this show even got made, that we got to tell the story kind of the way we wanted to. And this, at the time, doing a kind of continuous story in kids animation was not a thing that was happening.
Yeah.
It was more common in Japan, but certainly not in the US and certainly not on Nickelodeon. They were kind of confused by what we were making. But to their credit, they kind of were like, all right, you guys seem to know what you're doing, so we'll let you run with this idea. And so now when it's I think part of the reason why like now that the original series is back on Netflix, why it's doing well is because it kind of fits that format already, where it's like even though they're standalone episodes, it's a continuous storyline. So,
well, it's kind of like because it's kind of like it's established that it's a living world, right? It's got a past, it's got a future, it's got a present, and anytime you dip in, for a particular story in any of the part of that timeline, it's it's alive. It's going to evolve. It's going to evolve over time. It evolved from something just due to all the world building that the original show had.
Yeah, and I looking at it too, it's so unusual particularly in the time that you were making it, it was so unusual where you had an animated show where the characters would evolve. They would change and grow over the course of 3 seasons. Like, I do feel like the characters are probably why it stands the test of time. Like, people return because they love these characters so much. Like, I feel like Toph in particular was such a big deal for me. Like, having this, I was this huge tomboy as a kid, and now I feel like we're having this huge surge of like women in animation and female characters and animated shows with female leads that is like incredibly important. But earlier in the 90s and in the aughts, it felt like that was incredibly rare to have like this strong, tough, like tomboy female character in a show, and then also have a show with like multiple female leads. We had Katara, we had Toph, we had Azula, we had May, we had Ty Lee. There were so many women in this show, and like that was something that like really spoke to my heart as someone who worked in animation. I did animation college. I worked in the industry for a few years before transitioning into comics, and it's like I'd never seen anything like that, something that had so many women in it. And then like watching the characters grow and transition and change over the course of those 3 years, it was so unusual. And that's why I continue to return to the show and continue to be inspired by it and wanting to put like that heart and that empathy into my own work. It was just, it was so different. I don't know. I feel like now looking at the new animated shows on Netflix, like Hilda, like She-Ra, like all of those, like that feels like Avatar: The Next Generation, like these creators inspired by Avatar now getting their own shows, which is so amazing. It's been really exciting to see.
I think it is hard to say where the it's hard to describe the extent of the influence of that original show. I think you could probably find it in almost any story that's being told right now, especially for kids. Even if it's not a fantasy story, I think there's some element of Avatar in there. And I do have to agree with what Mike said about Nickelodeon. This might be a bad thing to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways. When I was introduced to Avatar because one of my friends loaned me the box set of that season 1. He's like, "This is the best cartoon animated series that this country has ever produced," and he handed it to me. And I looked at it, and it had a little Nickelodeon logo on it. I was like, "Come on, really?" No? But it was just so wildly beyond expectations at the time. Not just for Nickelodeon, but probably for all of the animation industry. I do think some of the magic is like you can't even put your finger on it. You know, like it's almost hard to capture. But it is the world building and the characters. The characters I think are really incredibly real. I think they all have very relatable flaws. Even the hero, even Aang, has these, you know, he struggles with anger, he struggles with cowardice. These are all things that we all deal with on a daily basis. And I think as somebody who's written in that world, you can tell that it's a good world because some of those stories write themselves. You know what I mean? Like some of those characters write themselves. You just give it a little nudge and then you can hear Toph talking in her head and you just write down what you hear. It's because she's so well-defined. Like that world and those characters are so well-defined. They write themselves.
I love hearing Toph's voice in my head. She's so I love her.
That's actually kind of a great point, kind of about the fact that it is like a timeline with like a past, a present, and a future. And you guys have sort of been playing in that timeline, sort of in various points. What's it like telling a story where people kind of know what the end is going to be or what the next stage is going to be? What's it like playing in like a gap where people don't necessarily know?
Well, it's funny because I was never a fan of prequels. Like I always thought I never really understood them, and I was like, if you already know what's going to happen, like what's the point? But now, you know, obviously now we're doing that stuff a little bit. Although I mean, yeah, I mean it's interesting because like we did Avatar and then we did like the sequel, but then with the comics we were also kind of filling in the middle, so it was continuation of the original series, but also a prequel to Korra in a way. Yeah. But it is interesting to start to make those connections.
I love Gene and Faith's work so much because they fill in that timeline so organically, like answering like Gene answering the burning questions that everyone's left with at the end of the series, and Faith fleshes out the transition from, you know, as the Republic City is getting formed. Like I remember I read those comics and I like that meme where pointing like, yeah, that's the thing, yes. So it's just wonderful to see. You know, creators work with that you know that excellent clay and shape into excellent shapes.
Yeah, I feel really like fortunate to be able to write in that gap between Avatar and Korra, because I feel like that's something that's been really wonderful and really unique about the comics. It's that they do continue the story. Now, Katara and the Pirate Silver, that one is that tells a story during the second season of the show, so that's not advancing the Avatar canon. And that, to be honest, like that one in particular was just like so fun because I could just be goofy and loose and I didn't have to worry as much about canon. Like Imbalance was so hard to write, but I'm so proud of it. And it's inspired like also specifically about like my very personal reaction to the first season of Legend of Korra, in particular about things like taking away someone's bending, and is this like Aang means it as when he does it to the Fire Lord, it's like it's an act to save the life of this villain, so he won't have to kill him. But on another level, it's also a very violent act because you're taking away a part of someone. You're removing a part of their identity, a part of their personality. So, you know, it was imbalance was a lot of times inspired. Yeah, there were like elements in the story that were inspired like by my own traumatic response to seeing Korra lose her powers, like having her bending taken away by Amon, and having, you know, seeing that like very traumatic act right there on screen. And that's something that's was very exciting for me about writing Imbalance. It was like putting something like so personal into this licensed comic book, which is not something, you know, as a writer, you don't always get the opportunity to do. But yeah, I just, yeah, I feel like it's like this really cool gift that Brian and Mike have given us, the opportunity to expand the canon and continue to bridge the gap between the two series.
Yeah, I do think some of the fun of those of working on those comics is that the world in Korra is so well defined and it's so different from the world of Avatar. So it's sort of like, you know, if you see somebody after a summer, like when you're friends after a summer, and they went from being really, you know, terrible at basketball or whatever, and then they become suddenly awesome, and you're like, how did you do that? So you kind of ask that same thing about the entire world. You know, this world becomes this completely different place with Korra. So you want to know how'd you do that. I also think that with the prequel question, it's just because of the world building. Like there's that one scene in the original series where they walk into this room in an air temple, and there's this swirl of statues of all of the previous avatars, right? And when you look at that, you know that every single one of those statues represents a full story. Like it can kind of go on forever. And I think FC is doing that with Kyoshi. That is a full story. Like it doesn't feel like a prequel. It feels like something that could stand on its own. Like even if you didn't know anything about the world, that story still works. So it's part of the richness of the world that was built.
Totally. Kind of on that front. So obviously you guys are taking these stories and building them out, but you're also taking them to a completely different medium. So how is it sort of for you all to take these animations and turn them into something static? And for you, FC, how is it taking that animation and turning it into like a prose novel?
I don't know how Faith feels, but I did think that there was some struggle in the beginning with how to do bending in a static medium, like how to do the action sequences in a static medium. I remember having some conversations early on about that. Was that something for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel like one thing that Avatar is certainly known for is its incredible fight scenes. And in comics that, like, especially the page count, because if you're reading the Avatar trilogies in like separate individual graphic novels, they're, I think, 72 pages, 71 or 72, can't remember. I've only written like 6 of these. And so it's like you don't necessarily have the page count to do this like amazing like Shonen Jump style, you know, like fight sequence. So yeah, that was potentially very challenging. And also, like, I'm an artist myself, and with my original trilogy, The Nameless City, that was very inspired by Avatar, and also I really wanted to like challenge myself and do like really extended fight Shonen Jump style fight scenes. So like I brought that to writing Avatar comics. So sometimes I'd be told by my editor, it's like, oh, you know, this fight sequence, it's like, it's really long, so you need to kind of like, you know, compress it a little bit. Like, but that'll give Peter more of an opportunity to like do cool poses and that kind of thing. I know Peter actually had a martial arts consultant. Like he had a friend that does martial arts, and he consulted with that friend about like the correct way to draw the posing and the bending. I thought he did an amazing job. Like every opportunity he had to draw dynamic fight scenes, he went above and beyond. But yeah, it was absolutely a challenge at the beginning because we didn't necessarily have the page count. And then it's like, yeah, you're trying to take what on the screen in the show would be this like amazing like motion filled animated sequence, and then, you know, play it out with static images on the page. It's a unique challenge. I think you can do amazing fight scenes in comics. I just think you have to work really hard at them.
I think because I finished my latest rewatch just a day prior to this, and I think for the book I subconsciously I feel like I may have ended up toning down power levels to try to make everything more describable in prose. So
Yeah, but I would say like about those, because I know we've talked about like did you call it sand stepping? Was that what it's called?
dust stepping, yeah.
Dust stepping, yes.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that is cool because it's like it's a very subtle thing that actually in prose I feel like is clear to describe. Whereas if we tried to animate it, it might be like, why are they walking on the air? Like, what's going on? Like, it might just be confusing. And and that was the thing when Brian and our martial arts consultant early on, it was like finding these styles that were very dynamic, that would translate well into animation, especially TV animation, where you don't have the time or to get like super subtle, feature level animation all the time, even though we did get some of that too. But I think it's cool because it's like these different mediums have different strengths, and you're not gonna necessarily you're gonna go to the comic or a novel more for like, I feel like the character stuff or the story developments in the world building stuff. And then it is an action adventure show and universe, so obviously there's gonna still be all that life and death stakes and everything, but it's just kind of depicted in different ways.
Yeah, I know it's been a while, but Mike, how has it been for you kind of seeing your original story develop so much in these different mediums?
No, it's great, and it's really cool to work with very talented writers and artists, and creators in their own right, and see what they bring to the projects. And like Faith was saying, like bringing their own personal experiences into the characters and into the stories, like that's what makes the stories good. I was also wary of like it becoming a kind of property where it's just like, here's the novelizations and here's the comics, but without actually like adding any value to the stories or the property. So that's why Brian and I have tried to stay as involved as much as we can, as far as just like consulting, but like giving everyone the freedom to put their own spin on things and take it in different directions that like we never would have imagined. I don't. What FC did with the novel was fantastic, and like I couldn't imagine writing a Kyoshi novel myself. So it's cool that there are writers who can do that kind of stuff.
So obviously everyone knows now that Avatar is now on Netflix. Have you guys seen like a huge resurgence kind of in new fans or old fans coming back to it?
I've seen a lot more fan art online just recently, like popping up all over my, my Instagram feed and stuff like that. But also I'm Canadian, and I think it's been on Canadian Netflix like all this time.
Yeah, I think the US was like just behind the rest of the world. I think it was on, Canada and other countries. So
yeah.
But it is cool. I mean, I'm, just anecdotally getting like messages from old high school friends are like, my kid is watching the show now. And the fact that I think it's still in the top 10 on Netflix in the US, which is like after a month or so, which is like insane that this 15-year-old show is like in like standard def like format is still holding people's attention, and people are rewatching it for like the 30th time, or I've definitely seen posts like that too, where it's like or they introduce it to their friends, or they're or we also now it's like it's been long enough that like there's a whole new generation of kids who never saw it in the first place, so they're just seeing it for the first time, which is cool too.
That's happening at our house. So we have 4 kids. Our 2 older ones watched it when they were, my oldest is 16. So when he was around like 8, 9, 10, they watched the whole thing over and over and over again. And we had it. We actually had bought it on Amazon Prime. So I've had it this whole time. And then the younger kids now, because it was on Netflix, I don't know, it makes no difference. It's just like the icon you click, right? But for whatever reason, now that it's on Netflix, they're watching the whole thing over and over again now. And I just got a text from an old college friend. His 10-year-old daughter, his 9-year-old daughter is having her 10th birthday in a couple weeks, and she's just decided it's going to be an Avatar themed party. But she wasn't even alive. She was not alive when that show was. And now she's having an Avatar themed party.
That's adorable. Yeah, like I have the Blu-ray, the DVD, you know, those complete sets, but it's like, oh, it's on Netflix. Well, I'll just watch it on Netflix. The convenience and the ease of Netflix. It's, I don't know, so seductive.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen kind of a boost in people talking about our comics and stuff. There's like constant news stories like what happens after. It's like you can find out. And it's really great to see that people are not only discovering the show, but discovering that it keeps going. Speaking of it keeping going, there are a couple new books coming out from Faith and FC. Do you guys want to talk about sort of your new books? FC, by the time this is showing, your book has been out for officially 3 days, so congratulations in advance.
It's a in the future.
But what is it? What's your new book about?
The new book is The Shadow of Kyoshi, and it is about Kyoshi's adventures, sort of after following her revelation to the world as the Avatar, as was described in book 1. So a lot of it takes place in the Fire Nation. So there, just how book 1 was exploration of the Earth Kingdom, book 2 is a lot of background on the Fire Nation.
Yeah, what about you, Faith? What's your new book?
So in October, there is a standalone Katara-focused graphic novel coming out, written by me, drawn by Peter Wortman, called Katara and the Pirate Silver. It takes place during the 2nd season of the show, and it was basically inspired by Peter and I brainstorming about what sort of Avatar stories we would like to write, that he would like to draw. And he was basically like, I really want to do a story about Katara, because Katara is his favorite character. And I want to do one where she becomes a pirate. So I was like, okay, great. Let's do one. So yeah, that came about because of Peter's idea. That one was really fun to write. Oh my gosh, because it's not, it's not set in the future. So things are the canon is a little less complicated, and it just has a lot of comedy and action, and Katara on her own, dealing with complicated situations. So I really enjoyed writing it. And then there's some more stories coming, but they are not announced yet. So I don't know if I want to.
You're allowed to say that. Yeah, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the first standalone graphic novel, correct?
Yeah, I think so. It's the same length as the individual volumes of Imbalance. So it's 72 pages, 71 or 72. Why can't I remember? But yeah, it's a complete story. So you can pick it up if you've only seen the show, but you haven't read the comics. But yeah, I hope people enjoy it. Man, that one was really fun to write. Just really enjoyed that.
Nice. Yeah, in addition to those brand new stories that are coming, we've also got a couple new editions of some older stuff. So the Art of the Animated Series is coming out in a new edition. And we've also got, the Omnibus series is coming as well, which is really cool. So that means they'll be available in a more affordable format, kind of as a collection. A lot of times for Dark Horse, sort of the way it works is we do individual volumes and then a library edition and then an omnibus edition. And it's been nice to see, because there's so much love for Avatar, that we can just keep them available in every format so people can continue to read the stories however they choose to read them, which has been really fun for us.
Yeah.
Those covers are amazing. Over here did brand new covers for the omnibus editions. I think they're gorgeous. And then I just saw, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. You can cut it out if I can.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
I just got a new cover for the Art of edition. It was awesome.
Yeah, that will be, I'm pretty sure, available by the time this comes out, and I'll check on that and then we'll cut this out if not. But yeah, no, it's truly beautiful, and I'm really excited to see all that new art.
Yeah, it looks like something you can hang on your wall.
I have the original art of, like, I remember getting it like years and years and years ago when it first came out, and it was amazing. And just, it was so exciting to just like look behind the curtain of the, and see how the show was made and just all the concept art and yeah, just the very early sketches. Oh, and also there's a library edition of Imbalance out that has like all three volumes of the story and collected in this beautiful hardcover. And then there's like little notes from both me and Peter and early sketches from Peter. That came out this week in June. And I don't know, I'm just really excited seeing it. Let's see. I have a copy somewhere around here. Excited collected edition.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about the library editions is those sketchbook sections where you can see the original concept art and stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so we are just about to wrap up. Our time is running low. So would everyone kind of say where people can find you online and sort of maybe a project that you're excited about right now? It can be Avatar or not. Let's go ahead and start with you, Michael.
You can find me around, I don't know, where am I? I'm on Instagram, I guess. Look for Mike Dante D, I think. Other than that, I'm not too much. I have a website too, michaeldantedimartino.com, that I have to update. But yeah, I'm just working on some of my own side projects right now. So, and obviously still involved in the Avatar universe in various forms.
Perfect. FC, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, not frequently, but under Ye Book Author, just my last name, Book Author, all smushed together. And I'm working on a project that I got pages into, and then I realized, like, oh wow, this is very much again inspired by the greatness of Avatar. So we'll see how that works out.
What about you, Faith?
I'm right now I'm working on a unannounced original graphic novel that is going to be out from First Second Books a couple of years in the future. It's about girls and horses, and I'm writing and drawing it, and it's a little bit based on my experiences growing up as a horse crazy girl. So very excited about that original project. I'm also writing more Avatar, so just waiting on notes on my latest script.
Yeah. Maybe some announcement will be coming sometime soon. Who knows?
Or no notes. I mean, no notes is fine. Fine notes.
What about you, Gene?
Well, online, I'm at my name, Gene Luen Yang, all one word, on Twitter and on Instagram. I also have a website that needs to be updated, geneluenyang.com. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that. But in terms of projects, I just had two come out. I had a book called Dragon Hoops, which is about basketball, which is what the cover looks like, a basketball. And then with Gurihiru, our team that I worked on all those Avatar comics with, we just put out a book called Superman Smashes the Klan.
Nice.
Oh, I forgot my social media stuff. Sorry.
Oh, do it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, just quickly, I'm at Faith Erin Hicks on both Twitter and Instagram. Those ones are updated fairly frequently with art and random comments. And then I'm faitherinhicks.com. That's my website.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. I'm so glad we were able to do this in this weird time. I miss seeing everybody in person, and I think we all feel the same, but at least we get to do this with you now. Huge shout out to Abrams Books, which is FC's publisher. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, as well as Nickelodeon for letting this happen, and letting us play in their world all the time. We will see you again when we can see people in person, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Gary.